Critical thinking, a sea of souls selling out, but this ship is sinking. Flooded with watered down lyrics with subliminal meanings. To wake up another day, Lord, give me your reason. Are these prayers really working or just triggering feelings? I vocalize my pain and they say, isn't it genius? I'll be considered a legend if I consistently bring it. Now is that life after death or just recall to repeat it? Or does it go pitch dark and just dissolve into pieces? If that's the case, I wonder if I departed this evening from the top of the 47th and just fall to the cement for the entire police squadron and fire department to see it, will my disembodied soul then reach its path to completion, or just create another scene in which to deal with these demons? Not to sound morbid, my views are just distorted and grungy. I should cry myself to sleep on this mattress made out of money, but I'm not here to be liked, I'm not here to be nice. I'm not here for your war, I'm not here for your fight. I'm not here to be hyped, I'm not here for a price. When I bring you the truth, it's not delivered polite. Gambling with my life, you shouldn't have gave me the dice. You shouldn't have gave me the dice. All this misery shrouded in mystery, a violent history. THC chemistry, cure for depression, no, there is no remedy. Allergic to bullshit, nowhere in the histamine. Top of the class, haters graduate to enemies. Out in your ass is where they intended for you to be. Snakes in the grass, I cut them out eventually. Slave to the media, you gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. You gotta be fucking kidding me, bro. Yeah, and we live in a state of confusion. I hear what they say on the news. They usually just lay in the blueprint. Use the create a delusion. Movies that sway a conclusion. Use the delay your awakening. Instead of creating illusions. Clues to mistaking the truth. With no sense debating with fools who put all their faith in the skewed philosophy with situational views. Too many saviors to choose. I stare at the face of the moon. Too much information. Too many equations. It's too complicated to prove. Stories portray we consume like Thanksgiving tables of food. I'm sorry, not sorry. I ain't in the mood to dress up and play in this room. You can judge me and say that it's cruelty. I see the chains in the whip, I just don't mistake it for jewelry. Fuck out my face, now excuse me. I ain't got no patience today, so excuse me. Critical thinking, a sea of souls selling out, but this ship is sinking.
Our ancestors of long ago lived in a very different concept of the world from the one that we know today. Perhaps the greatest difference was in the universal recognition that reality was spiritual, not material. That all physical and material things were suspended from spiritual causes. And man, searching for these causes, instinctively turned his attention to what he regarded as the superior parts of the world. Ancient man had already come to a very important decision concerning the mystery of life. He assumed it to abide in the furthermost parts of the world and the innermost parts of himself. To him and to those who came after him, the term heaven came to have a double meaning. It was not only the spiritual abode of the blessed dead, the home of the gods, and the dwelling place of beings that never became visible to our perception. Heaven was also the great diffusion of space, this tremendous vaulted mystery that seemed to enclose the world as man knew it. Therefore, when he referred to terms such as heaven and earth, he could have more than one meaning. Heaven could be the starry firmament and all that lay beyond it. The earth could not only be the planet upon which we live, but matter, wherever diffused or distributed through the sidereal forms of things. Thus, in antiquity, the world does not correspond either with the solar system, or the cosmic system, or the planet itself. the world is a state of being. And for particular purposes, the ancient regarded the world as the material state of being. He extended it outward, not only to the orbits of the planets, but out into space, into all the hypothetical physical forms that might exist anywhere in the great material diffusion of matter and substance and of elements and essences. He then gradually came to conclude that there were three kinds of energies operating in all created things. The first was direct energy, which he associated with the sun, or with, perhaps more correctly, the great spiritual source of the solar light. The second was reflective energy, which he sensed as being turned from the surfaces of the planetary bodies, shining not with their own light, but with the lights of the heavens. And a third kind of energy, which he called material energy, which emanated from the earth itself, and was a kind of physical kind of energy. Thus he had three energies: spiritual, psychic, material. And he called the lowest or material energy force. And he considered force to be the dominant factor in the moving and molding of matter. He considered reflective energy, or that from the planets, as formal, or relating to the principle of form, and therefore that all compound natures which are formed are sustained by planetary energy. He then assumed that the spiritual life and power at the root of things, consciousness, essence, life per se, came from a further kind of energy which he regarded as solar, or belonging to the pure light of a sun. He then populated the firmament with suns, declaring that they were scattered like flowers throughout the great field of the sky, and that all these blazing suns together constituted the collective spiritual energy which sustained creation. These suns were what he called in those days, particularly the Chaldeans, the father fountains of all things. For these suns were like vast springs rising in the fields of eternity and watering with their life all of the structures which we call created or creation. Thus, from the beginning, he had a very spiritual concept of the universe in which he lived. All causes came from the great spiritual sources of life. He did not fully understand these sources, nor was he perhaps equipped to analyze the astronomical mystery of the cosmos. But he did live under the strong conviction that the sky that enfolded him was the source of a life which came from divine beings, and that the heavens were populated with a race of gods, and that the shining eyes of these gods watched him at all times, and they spread the mantles of their starry forms over the whole of creation. Thus religion inevitably borrowed much of its coloring from these spiritual ideals. Today we hold a somewhat contrary viewpoint. We build upward from matter. We assume our own material state to be a kind of center from which we seek to expand or spread out into space. Perhaps some do hope to find in space the answers to the mysteries of existence. But we are groping out towards spirit, whereas our ancient forebears lived forever in the acceptance of spirit. They lived forever in the realization that their little life was rounded by a vast spiritual scheme or plan. It was natural that the ancients, possessing as they did so strong and powerful an interest in philosophy, should have gradually organized the primitive opinions and convictions that had arisen in human experience. Thus, by degrees, theories were developed, concepts were formulated to explain the great mysteries of space. These explanations were not essentially very different from our own. We use more scientific terminology, and we have certain calculations to support our opinions. But ancient man did not differ so much from us in conclusions as we might immediately suppose. We assume that he must have been ignorant in comparison to what we know. But as we have said in other talks, primitive man seems to have possessed an intuitive power to grasp at realities. He lacked the words, he lacked the convenient terms and idioms with which to express what he had discovered or what he had felt or known. But at the same time, he has left us, perhaps crudely, but effectively, the record of his contemplations. So astrotheology must include this understanding of space, of the worlds, of creation, and of the laws governing all of these things. Perhaps one of the most complete expositions of this we have will be found in the religions of ancient India. Here we find astronomer Brahmins, students of space and time, working with the great foundations of knowledge even as we labor today. These ancient Brahmins not only possess unusual intellectual powers, but a tremendous daring of spirit, which enabled them to evolve and perfect concepts that almost overwhelm us even today. Their estimate, for example, of the length of life of a solar system was so mathematically amazing that we do not yet dare to believe it, yet we have never proved it to be untrue. All of these extensions, mathematical, scientific, rational, resulted in the gradual integration of a great concept of macrocosm-microcosm analogies of the operations of laws on different levels, and the gradual extension or expansion of the things that we know out into the great vistas of the unknown, seeking to conquer that which is beyond our sensory perception with the pure strength of our reasoning and intuitional faculties. So we have some interesting points which they made, which come within the province of our present thinking, and so we will attempt to expound at least some phases of their beliefs on these matters. To the ancient Brahmin, to the ancient Hindu scholar, space was first of all a totality, a unity. It was not an absolute diffusion going on forever and ever. It was a totality without boundaries, as far as we can conceive boundary. It was an allness that was also a oneness. For space, to these ancient people, was the ultimate answer. It was the only recourse of the mind or of the reasoning power in attempting to analyze the existence as we know it. All lines of research, all endeavor, all contemplation, moving from the familiar outward to the unfamiliar, passes gradually into a rarefied atmosphere in which mind and contemplation seem to fail. There is somewhere out there a point or a condition in which the conceivable fades into the inconceivable, the knowable into the unknowable. That which has an existence in time retires into an eternity. And in this great collective concept of ultimates, ancient man established his definition of space. Space was ultimate. Space was unconditioned, for it preceded condition. It was ultimately again unconditioned because it extended beyond condition. All things that exist arise in space and vanish into it again. Thus space, and all that it represents symbolically, is the eternal. It is that which has neither beginning nor end. It has no upper nor lower parts. It has no superior or inferior members. It goes on forever. Every part of itself full of life. Every part of itself germinal and seminal. Every part of itself capable of releasing beings from itself. It is a completely rich, inconceivable kind of earth, an invisible earth.